Thank you for joining us today, guys. We're at David Lloyd in West Bridgford in Nottingham. Can you start by introducing yourselves? Carl, we'll start with you.
Yeah, my name's Carl. I'm the general manager at David Lloyd in Chorley. I've been with the business 15 years, actually a total of about 20 years with David Lloyd. I've worked my way through various different roles. I've been from a personal trainer through reception. I've worked in sales as a sales manager, in what was a sports manager now in terms of activities manager, and I've got myself through all various different positions and different clubs, 8 different clubs in total, and into general manager. So yeah, but quite a lot of experience.
Yeah, just a little bit. And how about yourself, Andrew?
Yeah, hi, Andrew Lightbown. I'm general manager at Lichfield. I've been with David Lloyd since 2016. I've been continuously in the role for nearly 16 years though. So I was fortunate to be one of the Virgin Active clubs that came across in 2016 with the acquisition. My experience spans sort of from a part-time membership team member back in 2016 when 2009, sorry, when I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life at that point. Finished university and I just never left. I enjoyed it so much. So I joined David Lloyd as a general manager. But my background, like I say, was membership, food and beverage manager as well. And yeah, I've been a GM since 2016. I was at Lichfield for a number of years, and then very fortunate to move to Cambridge. Was given a great opportunity to move there, so I was there for a couple of years, and then I've been back in Lichfield since 2023 permanently. So just finished a master plan there. So yeah, loving being back in the Midlands for sure.
Great. It's interesting you say that you finished university, you never left. I think I've spoke to 3 other David Lloyd apprentices that have had a similar story. What is it that's keeping you guys here after university? Because some people might see it as a stopgap, but what's kind of like the allure to stay afterwards?
I think for me it was from graduation. I think I was still sort of in the university mode, so I had an ambition to do my masters, and that was always the plan. Not a million miles from here, at Loughborough actually, and I just got into an industry and just loved it. So as someone who's a keen sports player anyway, there's a lot of transferable skills, a lot of transferable elements that you can bring into a club like David Lloyd. Ultimately, we are a club for members, for each other, for the team, and that environment was just really interesting. It really spoke to me. Certainly as a general manager, a lot of the elements I take from my sport I bring into my day-to-day role, and it just changes all the time. I mean, if you look at the clubs from where we were in 2016 to what was important, what was on trend then, with spa retreats and everything that's sort of going on in our world now, and wellness and everything that's changing, it's just fascinating. It's something that just evolves constantly every year, and
I think that's important. I think the evolution of it and the transferable skills, like you said before, because I was a slightly different path, but I've worked with people who've taken a part-time job with us over, whilst they're at university, who have gone on, who actually graduated with law degrees, but then continued to work for David Lloyd, and because it's so multifaceted, and actually the pace of the business and the reward that you get for the achievement, and actually the ambition and the growth, all of those things, you can't really find that elsewhere. Believe me, I tried. I left for a while, and I came straight back because actually nowhere offered the same sort of the feeling and the development and the things that I wanted to do with my life. So yeah, that's why I came. That's what I see from it anyway.
Yeah. I can see why you'd want to stay after, you said, coming back yourself. Why you'd come back? It's definitely interesting to hear that perspective from a GM, because I've heard it from learners directly there, really through this journey. But you've seen the journey over a long period of time and seen why you should.
Yeah, sure. I mean, my first role in the Trafford Club was in 1999, so I did like 5 years then, and the values and just everything that the business taught me actually stood me in really good stead in the roles I went to do in the sort of gap before I came back. And actually, I always held on to that and thought, actually, I can, I need to pay back to David Lloyd in some way, and came back to grow my career and actually settle down and focus on something, because I've done a lot of travelling.
Yeah, great. So we're here to talk about apprenticeships.
Sure.
Why are apprenticeships so important to David Lloyd?
Well, I mean, for me, the apprentices are leaders of tomorrow, I guess. They're the ones that we are developing to sort of step into our shoes and to take the business to the next level. I think those that have the loyalty and understand the business from the shop floor and all the way through and understand all the different elements of it will become the best leaders and be in the best place to actually take us to the next level. They also have that education piece which sits alongside it, which again, back in the day when I was coming through, yes, we had some types of development programs, but this now gives us an opportunity to sort of put some academic learning behind it, give you some sort of mindset that you are actually on the right path, and actually get you thinking differently as well. So we're not creating drones here, or just doers, we're creating thinkers, and I think that is really important for the future of the business.
Yeah, I think every club is every club has its own identity. So you could walk into Lichfield and Chorley, and they're two completely different, completely different operations, and certainly with the apprentices, David Lloyd as a business is quite complex. So it's not an A to B kind of linear sort of one thing to another. It's one day you're a people advocate, another day you're in the plant room, another day you're strategizing around food and beverage, and some are at the club. So it's enormously multifaceted in that respect. So the development of people within David Lloyd makes it more important, because I think once you kind of understand that and you buy into the culture and what sort of David Lloyd does and our values and our behaviours, then that sort of really then sends you on the trajectory to learn more, because you understand it. To sort of Carl's point, it's the future leaders, and we've got, well, how many years we've been delivering it now, but we've got so many examples of our cohorts in Step Up to HLE in particular, where we reach the end of the programme and the majority of those team are in HLE roles. So it sort of speaks a lot, I think, about the programme and what the content is, but also setting those team members up for success. And it is an absolute cornerstone. We see that in retention as well.
I think it's important to understand that we have so many good people in this business, and we have so many people they come in with so much energy. They display the values. We recruit on values, and they have so much potential to move forward. And the apprenticeship allows them to have the performance to go with the potential. And I think that's what this brings to it more than anything else.
So I think that segues very nicely into our next question. So Carl, talk to me about the pre-apprenticeship days, because it's not a brand new concept, but you would have seen the full implementation of the life cycle of that.
We've always wanted, as a business, we've always wanted to develop our people, right? And that's very important. Put people first, and everything else comes from there. So we've always had kind of development programs in place. They would tend to be led by experienced GMs or experienced people who had a penchant for this, who wanted to really sort of develop people and grow with it. But it was few and far between. It was kind of, okay, as a folder, we'll go off and learn this together and we'll work on it. And it was only for really a select few. We weren't really able to scale it en masse. And so with apprenticeships coming in, I think we run 40 different apprenticeships now, and we've got over 290 people currently on apprenticeships, which is just unreal. And 5 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to accommodate that just with the internal structure that we've got. So, yeah, really proud of how that's developed over the years, and just to be part of it, really.
So what was kind of your first interaction with the apprenticeship programme?
This particular apprenticeship program, I was asked to go down as part of the development team to a meeting with Remit when we were deciding to actually bring it all together. And I sat there and listened to it, and I thought, because I'd been delivering the program previously off a variety of slides that had kind of been put together, and this created such an opportunity to look at it and think, actually, this is a really good way of taking us from sort of this level up right up to here where we can actually put some proper learning into place and we actually support them. I think what previously the issues we had with it was we'd do a session for a team member and then they kind of you wait to catch up with them in a 2-3 months time. And I think where Remit came in and where to have a proper structured apprenticeship in place allowed that person to continue their development in between those workshops and those sessions, which give them a better springboard for when they move forward as well.
Yeah. And Andrew, what was kind of your first experience with the apprenticeship programme?
So I think it sort of probably stems back again to sort of my roots with sport and how I sort of moved into this, but it's always been very team led. My sort of certainly my management style and my sort of culture is always very much built around that. And I think that as I suppose as a graduate, it was something that I'd done before, and I was very fortunate. So I was part of the first cohort actually for Step Up to HOD, right back sort of 5-6 years ago now, and it was just something that just interested me. Something that you want to inspire the next generation of leaders within our business, and certainly when with Remit's involvement, it really has sort of. You can see it year on year just get better and better, and the content gets better and better. And for me, that's what keeps me going as well, because you just see those improvements. You see the engagement, from the candidates that come through, and you do feel sort of quite proud to be quite responsible for these team members' development, because they come from. Certainly of the regions that we cover from it's quite a considerable amount of work to get to that to the place they are. And
I think what's important, what you were saying as well, we've had quite a lot of input into it. So we've, as GM champions, we've been able to sort of adapt the workshops and get involved.
We were talking about this actually before we came in, weren't we?
Yeah.
And so you can put your own. Every lead is different. We all do things slightly differently, and it's around sort of giving the team I suppose the opportunity to choose their path and choose their style. And so we may come across different challenges in club that may require different ways of working, and Carl may deal with that slightly different to me, and we work through that, and it's almost like an open working group where we share experience, and then I think we get a lot from it. I think when we leave and we learn what
teaches me more about myself, and that's one of the workshops that we do is where we teach people about themselves. And like Andy said, we all deal with things differently, but it's understanding what tools are available to you when things aren't going the way that you want them to go. And the apprenticeship allows you to understand that actually there's no one way that fits all. You don't have to do it one particular way. You could do it in different ways. You've just got to understand how you're going to react. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about how you cope under stress, and in various different situations you learn about how you learn. There's whether you learn through audio or visual. So there's lots of things that you take away from it that actually stand you in great stead for all different positions moving forward, whether it's with David Lloyd or not, to be honest.
An interesting one. You mentioned different styles of learning and different ways of learning.
Yeah.
At David Lloyd, I know you've got a range from people, in their 30s, 40s doing apprenticeship programs, people in their 20s doing it. How do you make sure that the learning content is right for that range of people?
I think, we in this particular module, in this particular apprenticeship with the Step Up to HOD, there's an end goal obviously in place around becoming a head of department, and in that it's learning about yourself, like I said before, in terms of how you deal with certain situations, but the skill set that you're learning is applicable for whether you've just started in a journey or whether you are, whether you're 30, 40 plus and you're sort of halfway, through your career or wherever you want to be and whatever you want to do. So these skill sets, and they're transferable, and they're not just entry levels. That's really important to understand, is that the apprenticeships aren't just for people who, back in the day, apprenticeship was somebody who was 14, 15 years old and going into a bricklayer or watchmaker or whatever it may be. But that's not the case anymore. It's about anyone who wants to further their skill set and their career. So the way that the modules are formatted, it's very much a case of you take away from it what you feel works for you in your level and where you want to be. To be honest, I don't know whether it's the same for you. Most of the people that I've started on the course, when we start together, we normally have one that may be a head of department who just got to that position. But most of them start as either a supervisor or a team member. By the end of the course, they're all in that role. They're all in the HOD role. They've all developed into that, and they're all sort of seeing it and learning it as they go along.
Yeah, it's I just think the nature of our business. So everyone enters it like me for a very very different reasons, and but generally there is there's a commonality in the room, whether it's health and wellness, or if someone's life's completely changed and it was through fitness or wellness, and that's sort of how they've ended up within David Lloyd, within the industry. So you certainly within every group that I've had, there's always a real appetite to learn, and sort of to elaborate on Cole's point that we try and give the tools to broaden horizons and broaden thinking. So fundamentally you are who you are, and that will be your style. And we certainly from my perspective, you need to be an authentic leader, because that's going to be the best version of yourself, and the best possible way to lead. But to give you the tools and awareness to learn all these facets around people, around human resource, around strategic planning, around commerciality, around operations. Everyone will reach that goal somewhat differently in each club, but we sort of present the tools to, and I suppose our experience, I think, on how we achieve that. And and look, you've got great people in the room as well. So these are people that really, really want to do this apprenticeship, and they're really engaged and really passionate about it. So there's a lot of collaboration. There's a lot of best practice which we encourage. So some clubs are absolutely superb at certain things. We want to know why. I want to know why.
Yeah.
I'm sat there in the room.
Yeah,
How
exactly.
do you deliver that? Yeah. And it encourages that. Encourages that
as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
so they meet people in the same position, and they go on to form these relationships that they keep throughout the whole career with David Lloyd. They tend to keep in touch. I think I'm in a WhatsApp group for every cohort for the last 4 or 5 years, and they still talk to each other. These people are still in touch, and they occasionally look for each other's support and help with various different things, which that's really invaluable, because most of the time you don't get to sort of meet the other people in the same boat as you, and I think that really works. I think one thing that I've found is that when you get into that role of a head of department with David Lloyd, you're not just a food and beverage manager. You are a food and beverage manager, a duty manager, a plant room operator. You're focusing on commerciality. You're focusing on member experience. You're doing all these different things at once, and so the prerequisite of having to learn about yourself and the skill sets that you need to get into that position, having done that beforehand, having that sort of that there in your armoury ready to go, puts you in a much better position when you get to that role, because when you're trying to learn that whilst in that role and you're doing all these other things, it becomes pretty difficult. And that's where we feel, I personally see a lot of really good people who come into the business at that level straight in without any sort of prior experience or anything like this, and they struggle. Whereas this gives you that sort of grounding, that armoury, if you like, to actually excel and learn about yourself before you actually get that role.
We see that in retention as well. So I think with it being such a multifaceted operation, that when the process of sort of inducting an HOD into these roles, this apprenticeship now is such a brilliant part of it. So, for example, 52% of our apprentices, are still with us after 5 years, and I think there's a big reason for that is because they've got the skills, the awareness, the networking, everything that that we can offer, and it gives those people the best possible chance to succeed. and they do, which is, which on the whole, which is great. And you can see that from the business performance, because the business performance, continues to go from strength to strength, from on a people scorecard, from team retention, which is always improving, to our employee engagement, which is in the high 80s and has been for a number of years now. So, and this is, programs like this are a really, really important part of that. They really do set people up for success, and certainly as well, from what we see, is that how much the team enjoy it, and they still reflect on it, as Carl, you do on Step Up to GM all those years ago. When,
did that.
when you were through that.
I went through the Step Up to GM program, the first or second cohort to go through it, and the network that that you build in that time. We still get together and we see each other at GM meetings and we have a good catch up. I was in Kensington just randomly and bumped into Mehdi, who I did Step Up to GM with 9-10 years ago, and it was just great to see and catch up with. So those relationships that you form whilst you're learning are, I think, stronger than what you would find when just as colleagues, as when you're going through a GM meeting, because it kind of almost I feel like you should know things when you get to a role, whereas at this point everyone's in the same boat. They go, all right, we all know that we're here to learn, so let's learn together, and we'll get and that's massive.
That's often one of the biggest takeaways I get from interviewing apprentices, not only at David Lloyd but across the board. They all love the workshop experience, because you're talking to people at multiple sites and everyone's got their different inputs and ways of doing things, and you bring that together, and it kind of creates a seamless culture and a way of doing things across the business, right?
Yeah, it spreads, doesn't it? It keeps going, it keeps spreading out, as and that's the best thing about it, is that we get some uniformity as well of how we approach things, but it creates a great culture.
Yeah, great. A question I like to throw in there, and I ask people at your level, is do you think you can teach someone to be a great leader?
Andy?
Thanks, Scott.
It's always a tricky one.
No, I think you can help people to understand the effect they have on other people, and I think that is important. We do quite a lot of work on leaders versus managers, and what makes a good leader and what makes a good manager. And I don't think you can directly say to do that, but I think what you can do is lead them to understand the difference between what a leader is and what a manager is, and how they can utilize those traits when in those roles, and really think about how they are perceived. I think that's the most important thing, rather than, I would never tell anybody to do anything in a certain way. I would always sort of suggest that there are different ways to do things, and find the way that works for you. And whether you are a good leader or not is a very very intangible thing to really say. Nobody will ever say I'm a good leader. It'll be the results that get that. So I think that's probably why.
I think inherently our team, our values have been an ever present in the last 10, 11 years, and we recruit based on those values. And I think that with the consistency around that, we recruit the right people, and more often than not, to sort of Carl's point, we can help shape we can help shape learning around being a good leader. I think inherently, the behaviours are there, and the enthusiasm is there, the will to win, the passion to serve, all those elements that make great people within our business. But certainly, for me, to Carl's point, the awareness piece is key. So for example, you could be the hardest worker in the world, but you may not then be developing the next person behind you, or it's so you've got to have that sort of 360 awareness, really, of not only yourself but your impact on others, because we're also sort of having to coach. Hopefully these cohorts will be in our shoes in 5 years, and they'll be delivering the course for the next generation. So the more that we can sort of give that self-awareness and the impact, and understand the complexities of the business, and all the changing dynamics, everything, then yeah, I think you can, as long as you've got the right behaviour.
I think just to expand on one of your points there, the team members that we tend to work with in these programs are very good team members, very good at doing, and they exemplify all of the values that we want them to be. So we want to develop them, but the trick to become a leader, to become into that thing, is actually not doing it for yourself, not doing it yourself, which is what they're used to that's not what they used to do. So it's like it's taking their mindset away from it's actually okay to step away a little bit and empower other people to do things. And that is the biggest learning curve I see in a lot of people is they just kind of want to keep doing it themselves because that's always everyone want to do. So try to develop that sort of learning and development in them to understand how to step back a little bit and develop others. That's where we start to see the change.
Yeah, I said this on actually the last podcast that we did with another company that does a leadership apprenticeship with us. To do some form of leadership training is a very selfless thing because actually you're doing it to benefit everyone around you, ultimately not to benefit you in the traits that you pick up. So I think you're absolutely right in what you're saying. Actually, it is a very selfless thing. You step away and think, actually, that's how I develop other people around me, which is great.
That's what you want, that self-awareness, that realisation, actually, okay, it's not about how many coffees I serve, it's not about how many people I interact with, it's how do I get this person to understand how they do that, and then it can, as a chain, works.
Yeah. So at Remit, we go a long way to make sure that we're tailoring the correct programs for the employers that we work with, and the Step Up to HOD is a very tailored program specifically around kind of how you guys operate as a business, which I think is absolutely brilliant because it fits your mould. You guys have both said that it's very important about culture and that kind of part of the business is important to be embedded into your apprenticeship program. So what impact do you see of a tailored program, and it might be down to your delivery, to how you then see that rolled out across the business. What impact do you see the program having on the day-to-day running of clubs?
It's significant. I think to sort of my point earlier that we're not a linear business from an A to B or a factory floor where there's you bring the raw materials for the finished product. It's we are a forever evolving beast, 16 hours a day, and just the nature of our business just throws in lots of different complexities, and for me that's probably the most important part is that we're able to deliver that. So you have the theory, so the new which the team really enjoys. So that, like I say, around the self-development, and we talk about Tuckman and all the different things that we do within in the workshops are just one of many. So more often than not the team really enjoy that, and then we sort of try and bring it to life with the nature of, right, this is what happens within our clubs and this is how it's relative, and that's what makes it really powerful. It's not just a case of just a bit of a tick box exercise or a module for the sake of being a module. Every time we leave, that we know that the feedback is always really positive on how they can take what they've learned from the day and the learning following back into club. And we always try and encourage that, and we refresh that. So every workshop, certainly for me and for Paul, who I deliver with in Central and Southwest, is that talk to me about what you learned from the last workshop. Let's revisit it and give me an example of where you've implemented that into your clubs. And so it really does bring it to life, and it really sticks then. I think it's really powerful because you can see how important that theory is, and then applying it to what we do.
Yeah, you say it's obviously a tailored approach. It is just that. We have to allow them to go back and implement these things and encourage that to happen, and that's what gives them the experience when they're not in the hot seat of being in that role where mistakes will always happen and things, they might not get it right. It's the learnings they have and the opportunity to come back and talk about those learnings and actually what didn't go right. How did it go? What did you learn from that experience when you actually implemented it back in club? Those opportunities you don't get everywhere else. When you do an academic learning or elsewhere, rather than through an apprenticeship, you don't get the opportunity to actually put it into practice, and that's the bit that I think makes a big difference with how Remit have changed it with us as well. They've applied the learning to a certain situation, and they've learned from how they reacted to it and how it went and then when they are in the hot seat and they're actually delivering it for themselves in the future, they'll have that experience to look back on and hopefully have the be able to make the right changes if they need to.
I think culturally it triggers others as well.
Yeah,
so if you see it may be a supervisor, a new HOD that's on the Step Up program, and if you see, newer team members within that, and you've got this team member that's implementing learnings from what they've learned in a workshop or, from the program, then that's really powerful, because then you can see that sort of meaningful learning being brought into practice. And, to reiterate my point at the start, that, the program gets better, genuinely gets better every year. It evolves, and, and you can, like I say, you can see the team enjoy it. We're still putting through, sort of workshops, 14, 15, 16 people, every time we meet. So, that momentum is still going, which is terrific. And look, like I say, it does then it really does bed into the culture of the business, which has been terrific.
So what kind of support, Carl? You obviously mentioned you came to Remit 6 years ago and was part of that initial kind of development program. What's kind of Remit's involvement been on the journey to getting the program to where it is today, and how have they supported you guys in the delivery?
So there has been quite a few workshops between Remit and David Lloyd. I know Sue and has met with Remit at my club to look at developing the program. I'm constantly feeding back to Sue around Sue's our head of apprenticeship, on how it aligns to it, if it's not slightly right, or is there something that's not kind of working, or we've evolved, because our business evolves really quickly, right? We go from one learning platform to another. We've changed things. We're doing a lot of stuff, right now, and so that has to change with it. So the apprenticeship changes with it. So I've done 2 cohorts this year. The second cohort this year will be very different to the first one, because we've got different learning platforms. We're doing things differently as a business. So we having Remit to sort of on call and being able to discuss that with is there. But I mean, in your region, there's always a representative for Remit in the session, which allows them to listen to how we're delivering it, to understand the business even more and more and more, so that they're also learning. So I found that the coaches, the Remit coaches, are going back and actually, helping our team even more over the years. So 6 years ago, it was quite alien. Our business is very unique in the sense of how we operate. So I've seen the learning from the Remit coaches coming through as well, understanding our business even more. So they're better able to facilitate our candidates and working with them while they're not on the workshop, so they understand it in a better way. So
I think
massively changed.
I think that improvement, I think you're right, Cole, stems from that, is that Remit have clearly taken the time to understand our business, and with that understanding comes those improvements that have been made, and not only to the program but the learning styles, and also sort of the pre-course work, the work outside of the workshop itself. You can see that journey is much more straightforward for everyone now. So that would be definitely something that's been a real positive change.
We definitely pride ourselves on, we've got a famous saying within the business is our people become your people.
Yep.
And I think that's clearly happening here. Like you said, embedding ourselves in the workshop. I bet some of the DCs can kind of tell you word for word what's on the curriculum breakdown.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that's really important, because we need to understand the program to make sure we deliver an effective program.
Yeah.
So I think that's great, and especially some of the feedback that we get month in and month out from learners that have come into our head office and said, how great their experience was on program, how great the DC was. Yeah. That's so important, I think, to have that connection with the learner. In terms of success stories so far, then, so you talked about possibly you want to see one day a former apprentice delivering as a GM.
Absolutely. I don't think we're that far away from it with some of the ones. They've been in positions for a few years. I mean, across the business, there's so many that go through each year. I mean, I just want to focus on one sort of success story, because this kind of, for me, it highlights the support they get from Remit as well as everything else. So the individual in mind is called Steph. I'm sure she wouldn't mind me talking about her anyway. But Steph was on my first, I think it was the first one with Remit. Now, Steph has learning difficulties, and so having the support of the Remit coach has massively, we extended the time frame for her to graduate through because of that time, but that she was supported every step of the way through Remit, and it's kind of exemplifies what the apprenticeship is all about. It's all about having somebody who's is a great worker, great advocate for the business, wants to succeed, takes more time to develop than probably what most people would, but actually has had a great experience by learning through the workshops, thinking about it, taking some time to go away and sort of implement it, getting the support from the DC, and then putting it together. And when she graduated last year, I think it was last year, she graduated, and year before, graduated year before, and she became a HOD last year. So she got into the role that she wanted to get into. And she's a health and safety manager now, and in her very first audit, she got pretty much one of the best scores in the whole business last year for doing so. And actually, I've seen her grow from this sort of kind of timid, unsure of herself individual, not sure about how to conduct herself as a manager, if you like, to where she is now, and it's completely chalk and cheese, and it's great to see that development go through, and that for me has been a real success story, because it just highlights that it's not just, I've touched base with her, I've worked with her, helped prep her for interviews and things, but it's more the learning she got through Remit and the support that she got in the background that really got her to actually to a point where she could graduate through it and really felt like she'd achieved something.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty to call upon, and that's the best bit about. I think that's why we do it. Certainly, knowing Carl, I'm sure it's the same reason as me. But it is the best feeling when you see those team members move forward. And there's a couple that are on the course at the moment. So we've got Jimmy, who was at Colchester. So Jimmy's gone into Cambridge, my club, as an operations manager, which is a big Band 1 club. You've also got Tracy. So Tracy, who's at rugby. So Tracy went through the program last year, and she's in a really big role as activities manager there now. With a fairly recent promotion. And that sort of trickles on. There's Skye at Solihull Cranmore in our region, who's sales manager, doing a brilliant job. So, you could go on forever with all these examples, and look, it is a genuine case that we do see towards the end of the program that majority of that team are sat there, ready and waiting, or are in roles for roles. It's a great problem.
I've got 9 people on apprenticeships at the moment in my club, and actually, I'm thinking, what am I going to do? They all move on. I'm like, how am I going to backfill this? But yeah, it's a nice problem to have.
It must be such a moment of satisfaction. See, just mention all these names now, just thinking, I can see you both beaming with pride.
To feel like you were part of the journey. I mean, I'm quite humble in the fact that I don't really feel like, I think it's them that do the learning. We're here to facilitate it, and as GM champions to support, but those are guys, the ones that step out of the way and get into and do that, and do all the work and really implement it themselves. The ones that really want to succeed will take the learnings and will go off and make it work. So
yeah.
It's good to hear, because I like, and what keeps me motivated in my job role is I like the success stories. Speaking to Tracy at the graduation, I could tell how much she benefited from the program, how much she endorsed the program, and just the learnings that she told me about it's brilliant. It's nice to know that she's having that impact, and she's got personal growth from it as well, which is great.
I think Tracy's a great example of of a number of candidates. So because Tracy, and I know I've known Tracy for many years, and Tracy was in a individual role for a number of years, and I think doing the step up for her was kind of the kickstart that she really needed, and she's just flourished ever since. And so and she's been with the business as probably as long as I have. So it just shows that there's never a wrong time to do it. There's never a right time to make that step. Whether you're in your late teens, early 20s, or a little bit older, or you've come from a different industry. There's it just shows how powerful that what the course has done.
And I think that's a real key point. We touched on it earlier, where I think there's still that accessibility within apprenticeships. That there's a stigma that is there an apprenticeship for that? Because I often talk to people outside of my job role and say, I've just done an apprenticeship of this nature, and they're like, oh wow, I didn't know I could do an apprenticeship in that. And I think is there a piece from your perspective that we could probably do better in the apprenticeship space to raise awareness?
Look, I mean, I've got one on a project management apprenticeship who works on my bar, which I found really difficult to begin with, to get the support and actually help her to not to actually learn, but to put the learnings into practice. There's the project management one is quite unique, and I think we've managed it, and I've learned loads from being able to do it. And she's just about to go through endpoint assessment on that, so it's a great opportunity for anybody learning. It doesn't matter what department you're in. I think we as a business should be able to support all the different apprenticeships that we offer, and I think that's where Remit, the step up to HOD, you can take examples from that to sort of learn about how we can do the other ones in a slightly different light, and support the likes of the project management ones and even the chef ones and those types of things, and how we can get more out of those, because step up to HOD is a great example of really tailoring it for our business, and if we could do more of that for the future, that would be, I think, hugely beneficial.
I think it sort of helps as well. From a futures perspective. So, with David Lloyd, the growth is so significant year on year with new builds, refurbishments, projects. That creates lots more opportunity sort of outside of it, and sort of the step up is really such a strong foundation to allow you to then perhaps that may be the route you go, because you learn more about the business, you learn more about the clubs, you learn more about the people, the culture, the value, everything about it. So, we have these learning journeys within David Lloyd that give you sort of that path to where you want to go. And look, it's brilliant that someone on the bar can be able to do something like that. So
I've got a lifeguard at the moment who's on a degree level apprenticeship. So it's trying to create opportunities now for her to learn to be essentially a general manager at the end of it, and learning administration, learning marketing, learning all these different things. It's a great.
Yeah, it's if you look throughout the business, the spine of our business has been development from within. So James Willis started as a lifeguard or ops director in Dudley. James Dent, sales director, started in club. There's so many examples, and it's certainly when it comes to a program like this, it's a very, very achievable goal to move forward. And like for me, if you'd have said to me 16 years ago I'd be sat in Lichfield having been at Cambridge for a couple of years and come back, you'd never have seen that. But the way that our business is allows you to do that, and like I say, with having this program, it just really sort of elevates everything, doesn't it?
I think a good point on that is that we do. I think we aim to promote about 75% of our leaders from within the business. Well, there's a danger there that you get the same sort of people who are just used to doing it the same way and all that. Whereas those who've been through the apprenticeships or the academic side of things, they can balance the David Lloyd learnings with new skill sets, with new ideas, with different theories behind things that they perhaps wouldn't have got if they were just kind of promoted from within all the way through. So this gives an extra balance and an extra thinking element to our future.
Breaks the mold slightly, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. You don't want drones of the same thing coming through, because you'll never progress as a business. You'll always kind of stay where you are, or if stand still, which is not good in business. So we creating these leaders who are coming through and learning the latest ways of doing things, because they've got this the apprenticeship behind them, they've got the academic side of it. So I think that makes a massive difference moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I always bring this example up. It was a previous hospitality business we worked with. They did a competitor analysis as part of their apprenticeship program, and they seen one of their competitors was using an online delivery service. By incorporating that as part of their endpoint into their business, you grew it by 30% just because they added that extra income, which is a learning directly from, because if we didn't have the apprenticeship program in that store, they might have just kept on going and lost out 30% of revenue.
So these are all huge opportunities for us, because again, like I say, we meet new people. I'm currently on a level 7 MBA apprenticeship at the moment, and I'm meeting people from all different industries, gaining ideas, learning new skills, understanding what it takes to be successful in business, and not just looking at it the David Lloyd way, getting to a point where I can think differently and help the business to grow through different trains of thought. And I think that's really important as a business to grow, rather than just keeping, like I say, just everyone who's used to doing it, ways of working, you keep doing it that way moving forward. So this sort of thing helps massively.
So an interesting point on that. I know you're doing the level 7 now, so that's been given kind of an end cut-off date in, I believe it's 2026.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Do you feel that, and again, this is maybe not only for the level 7 apprentices, but giving people an opportunity to enter certain levels of education, that might not have been accessible for them. So
yeah,
in terms of the cut off the level 7,
I think as a business, and it's something that I've had conversations with James over around whether we actually look to fund it ourselves because of the benefit that we should get at the end point anyway. You know, and actually continuous learning, to my point before around bringing fresh ideas and new ways of thinking and understanding, you know, how to actually go out there and discover what's available. You know, I've got, in my career, I've got 20 years of experience with David Lloyd. I could be very pigeonholed into saying, you know, I know how to do it this way, I don't know how to do it any other way. So without these additional learnings and these new people coming through, we probably wouldn't grow in the way that we want to grow as a business. And I think that opportunity to take a step back and sort of say, well, actually, do we invest in our people, you know, regardless of whether the government funds this or not, I think is a really powerful message to give out to the rest of the team and to the staff to say, actually, you know, we feel like we can benefit, and, you know, as a business from this, but you will benefit as well. You know, so it's a win-win situation. You know, and luckily within our industry and our business, we're in a position where we can fund it, or potentially could fund it if we wanted to. So I think the principle of it all, though, is that continuous education and continuous learning is valuable, and we need to still keep thinking about how we achieve that, regardless of whether there's a funding for an apprenticeship or not.
Yeah, and the stats support it. I think I said earlier on, you know, 52%, 5 years, nearly 80% after 2 years. That retention is for our apprentices is really high. Yeah, it's I've not sort of worked towards the level that Carl is, but you know, certainly you can see the ripple effect and how the power it has within a very people-centric business, which we are, and then the benefits that brings. And so, you know, again, we talked about the success of how well David Lloyd as a business is doing, and it's doing, you know, fabulously well, and it's exciting. It's something to be a part of, and you know, and certainly this, like I say, is just one of those elements that, you know, is a real.
Yeah. So as business, we invest in the people first and foremost. I think that's important to take forward. You know, and again, that's how we achieve that moving forward. You know, is, you know, with Remit's help, and we've been achieving that for the last 5-6 years. You know, and that's growing exponentially since it was, you know, 10 years ago. And if we carry on with that trend, it's going to put us in a better position moving forward, particularly with the talent that I know we've got, you know, across the business. And as the business keeps acquiring new clubs, we keep growing, we keep expanding into Europe. We've got different facets. We can, you know, again, we're sort of slightly taking a different steer with the wellness side of things at the moment. So there's new opportunities coming up, and that might branch out into other apprenticeships as well, and all the things that we can take learnings on board from. So there's still loads of opportunities to go at.
Yeah. So you made an interesting point earlier, Carl. You've got 9 apprentices in your club.
Yeah.
How do you balance that with making sure that the operational part of the business is still performing how it needs to? Is there a balancing act?
Look, there's definitely it takes work, and actually that's, I think sometimes it does hold, you know, people back a little bit. I'm bought into understanding the benefit of having somebody whose off the job hours are there to support you. And if you think of it that way, their off the job hours are not a pain for you. They're not there for you to find somebody else to cover that. You can utilize that for the benefit of the club, for the benefit of the business, and ultimately, you know, for your own benefit and for that benefit of the individual. So the individual is learning. The department is gaining some, you know, additional, you know, support in a way that, you know, whether it's on the bar, whether it's reception, wherever it may be, from admin, because they are now learning how to, whether it's, you know, conduct a meeting or do something different, do a slightly different project, learn something different commercially. You are empowering other people to start giving fresh ideas into it. So if you look at the off-the-job learning as a positive and as a way to really grow the business, you find that you can quite easily make the time. Yeah, but there's a justification over everything when you're in the hot seat, when you have to justify at the end of every single month. But when you've got a really good engagement score, mine's, you know, in the 90s, which is, you know, in a really good position for the business, you know, to be over 90% in employee engagement. I think a lot of it is down to the fact that we do give them opportunities to learn and develop. I think if you look at it as saying, well, you can't have 6 hours out to do to do your own work this week. You know, we need you in your role. You kind of it's the wrong perspective. So I think and this is what I try and encourage with all the GMs, and actually educate a lot of the GMs in our region, whether you've done this in yours, whereas I go through what the workshops entail for each of the GMs. So I send it out to everybody so they understand what is coming and what they're expected to go back and deliver in club. So it gives them a little bit more education around, actually, okay, I can get them involved in this head of department meeting this time, and maybe they bring some fresh ideas and we all learn together. And that, I think
it's part of the program anyway as well. So, you know, to take on more, you know, if, you know, nothing grows in a comfort zone, right? So you could have quite easily go into club and do your job and not find time. But, you know, some of the skills that we teach within our workshops are around time management, prioritization, delegation. You know, you have to create that opportunity. And, you know, certainly, you know, once the program's complete, it's a very, very relevant skill to then take forward into a HOD role, because naturally as a HOD within David Lloyd, your workload goes up. You're dealing with 1,000,001 different things, and if you've had that experience of, you know, being able to successfully navigate through a program and through the club as well, then it sets you up really, really well, because that sort of time management piece and everything is you've kind of had a flavour of what it's like and how to do it, and it does very, very much set you up.
The more people that come through it as well, the more people sort of understand what the learner's going through, so they give them more opportunities to learn themselves, and it kind of has a knock-on and a sort of snowball effect for everything in the club, because your learners support the new learners that are coming through as well. So the more you get through it, the more you'll find the benefit for the future ones coming through, because they've been in those shoes.
Yeah. It's about educating the business on what the requirements are.
Yeah, and you know, and that has been a challenge. But I think as we grow and as we put more emphasis on this and we see the benefits coming through, I think everybody's a slightly different mindset with it, but it's starting to all conform into a nice sort of working relationship now, and actually giving the opportunities back, and understanding that as part of a business is something that we're benefiting from, so we should be going all out to support.
I think there needs to be a lot more emphasis on kind of the benefits of someone being a mentor to apprentices.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that could be overlooked, and I think having that positive mentor in a workspace is so important. So what's kind of the involvement between the mentor and the learner in the club, and how do you kind of balance that around peak times as well? Because obviously, like you said, come January and summer, people getting there ready for summer bodies and all that kind of stuff. What's the balance in that?
I think it's a continuous learn. I think, you know, you've got to take the practical, take elements of what you learn on the program into the club, and certainly refresh it. And I even find myself going back into club after, you know, I've delivered a workshop, and I'm like, I need to do that better myself. You know, because it may have fallen off my whatever it might be. So, you know, it's that constant encouragement to sort of say, right, you've not just done the workshop, but you've got to really, really sort of revisit it, and, you know, sort of take on board around the time management piece, around, you know, managing yourself as well, because look, you never finish. Your work at David Lloyd is never done, right? You never leave at the end of the day and think, right, we've absolutely nailed. There's always something. There'll always be something, just because the nature of, you know, we are hospitality, in that sense. So, so it's very much a case of encouraging the team to think try and think for themselves, rather than sort of automatically telling them what to do, or
thinking on their feet as well,
thinking on their feet, because you know, majority, and certainly for me, I think that the strongest HODs that I've worked with are the ones that sort of the best decision makers. I think that they have the ability to sort of navigate through moments with ease and quickly. And I think that once you sort of encourage, certainly from a mentorship on how to do that, I think rationally, and how to manage certain situations, then that really, really does help, because then you're not taking something away and there's the monkey on your back and all that kind of thing. You know?
You're right. So. It's that ability to think, but also not to overthink, to act a little bit more on instinct, and that's where this kind of comes through. We're teaching them that sort of, without giving them, you know, a huge all that pressure at once. You're giving them the tools to reflect back on, that slowly starts to become part of their instinct and start thinking on the moment. And our business, you can be right, okay, this afternoon I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do budgeting for the next 3 months, and then all of a sudden receptionist calls in sick, plant rooms, you're down in the plant room because the combines are high, and you're trying to deal with all that, and you actually, okay, let's just move on, I can do that on a different time, and not worrying about that, just acting on, okay, well, that's fine, that's what the business is. We have to reflect on that. And the ones that I find that don't sort of progress and go further are the ones that sort of sit and dwell on this too much. Well, I was too busy, I can't do it. And we spend a lot of time in our workshops talking a lot about managing your time, understanding priorities, prioritizing a task, and not worrying too much. Trying, don't overthink it to a point. You're in a position because you've got great instincts, you've got great values. Work with those, and we can work with you moving forward. I think it's really important as a HOD with David Lloyd, because that is really it's a very difficult thing. You're not creating a food and beverage manager who can go and manage a cafe on a high street. Because there's very obviously similar skill sets there, but then you've got to also manage this multifaceted building with pools and kids and team members, 100 and odd team members at different points, and all sorts of 2,000 people walking through the door a day, going to different areas, and you're also in charge of all of that, all the health and safety elements, all the checks, all that you have to do with all those types of things. So it's helping them to understand where they fit
in the workshops. We always sort of kick off, and it's very much a case of you should not be contacting club, you don't need to, and if you do need to, then you've not set yourself up in the right way. So we try and sort of help, and with those skills in the sense of the club will still be there in 8 hours time if you can spend some time overnight. And if you can't spend some time overnight and do the course and do the learning, then reflect on why that is. So, is it your processes? Is it your people? Is it the organisation? Whatever it might be. So you need to make sure that you're following those sort of trends and doing those things yourself to set people up. And we used to see it at the start of the programme where you'd be on laptops and phones, and I need to do this, I need to do that, and we've tried to sort of stamp that out to sort of get them thinking sort of ahead, and a bit like we are today, really, Carl. Like we've come out of the club for spend some time in West Bridgeford, and
so I think a good point on that. My question is twofold now. It's what makes a good workshop, and how can an apprentice best prepare for their first workshop, let's say.
A good workshop. If I answer the workshop, you answer.
Yeah.
Throw that on you. Delegation is a good workshop.
That's right.
No, I think a good workshop is a combination of, I think, the theory, ultimately the business theory that is that you can translate to most businesses, whatever it might be, from SWOT analysis to Tuckman to all these different theories, and then for us it's very much a case of bringing it to life, bringing the business to life within these modalities. That tends to be where we certainly I get the most engagement, is because we relate it to, because let's say we're such a broad business, there's nothing you can't relate any business theory to within David Lloyd, whether it's related to people, finance, ops, commercials, safety, you name it. It's very, very easy for us to sort of to take you down a road and a scenario. I think myself and Carl have combined 20, 30 years general manager experience between us, and there's not a lot that we haven't dealt with and not a lot that we haven't seen. So with that being the case, it makes it easier for us to sort of bring it to life, and with real life experience around how actually what you're learning today is really, really important.
Yeah. And as an apprentice, coming into to a workshop for the first time, they need to understand that. I think it was your point before around they're often in a role where they're either a supervisor or there's something going on. They're thinking, and I've seen it before, where they're checking their file, something's happening in the club and something's happening in the club, and they need to be able to actually understand that this is their time. They're here to learn. Everything will be fine. The business will run without them, and they need to be able to come into the workshop with a clear mind and actually take on board this. And I see the change. You see them all come in and they're all sort of sat there going, okay, this is just going to be a bit of a bore or whatever it may be. Yeah. And by the end of the first workshop, they're all like, okay, I took loads from that. And you can see the excitement to go and actually implement some of these things back in club. I think it's just having that, giving themselves that time to breathe. That's the word. Yeah. The time to go, okay, this is my opportunity to learn.
So the transformation from workshop 1 to the last workshop must be incredible, right?
Oh, huge. Even from 1 to 2 to 3, I mean, as you go through the different workshops, you see the bulbs light up a little bit as you start linking things back, because it is an evolution of process. It's not just a standalone workshop, but each one is different. They do touch back, and I always relate back to sort of kind of the first ones where we're learning about each other and themselves, and go back and try and relate it back to what they've been learning through the whole thing. And I say, that's why, and they go, yeah, okay, I get that. So that's why we do that. Okay, I understand that now. And you see that click go.
You can see the camaraderie as well, I think, in the group. I think that's the big thing, is that, I think any general manager or HOD in any club will have similar challenges, and just having the opportunity to network with your peers. But you see just so much more confidence. For me, certainly, once you do reach the end, and and some real life examples of where these learnings have been taken into. So I mean, we spoke about Tracy earlier, and Tracy went from a very product orientated role to a very, very commercially led role in one of our real signature clubs in rugby. So I really do feel that program was part of that, and it gave her the tools to be able to make that step. And
it's always there, isn't it? It's always you can reflect back on it 2-3 years later. You could go, okay, you can keep going back to some of these learnings and some of these self-help. I guess if that, but for want of a better phrase, is we can say, right, okay, that's why I've reacted in that way. Okay, I can slightly adjust it, and it's always there. It's still there for you to go back to.
Yeah, I think even if you make mistakes as well. So, we try and be open around if you try to implement, whether it's around, it could be a catch up, for example, where a conversation has not gone right or something's not been dealt with, and you're always, because you've got the awareness of this now, of what you learn within the program, that you can revisit it. I take it into my golf at the minute, right? So I'm trying to get my handicap down at the moment, and I've got videos and different things around how where I'm going wrong, just slight little adjustments and different things around how I can constantly improve and be better. And that's very much what this is. It gives you the tools to improve and the self-awareness to be better. You're not going to be the polished, finished article. I make mistakes on a daily basis. You probably don't, Carl, to be honest.
Oh, I do, mate. I know you are.
But you've got the infrastructure and something behind you to understand, actually, that's how I made that person feel, or I could have dealt with that better, or I could have got a better reaction, or I could have managed a certain situation better, just based on what I know more about now, just through learning.
Well, it's like to use your golf analogy, you're always going to make a bad shot here and there, but if you dwell just on the bad shots, which tends to what happens. The players always go, I've hit a bad shot, then it gets in your head. We're trying to help to understand that how to get rid of that mindset. Focus on the good
stuff.
So
how is kind of the apprenticeship setting up people's long-term career progression?
From the skill set, that's massive. Obviously we're learning about themselves, the career progression. Obviously the elements, it depends on which apprenticeship they go on, and whether it's a step. We've talked quite a lot about step up. Obviously there's different ones that we have. We've got an early learning degree just starting, I think, this year now as well. So there's lots of different routes and paths which you can go down, whether it's back of house from the kitchen side of things with chefs, or for working with children, or developing to senior leaders. So yes, you're going to get specific skill sets from all of those things in there, but again, the career progression is there for you to have, because if you take those learnings and apply it, you're in a better position than somebody who's had the learnings but never applied it. And I think that's where the apprenticeships help that development of a career.
I think within the business as well, we have a lot of team members who've got different backgrounds, a bit like me, who ended up in health and fitness, wellness for a number of different reasons. I mean, I remember years ago I had a doctor who was a personal trainer. I've had a teacher who works with me now, actually, in DL Kids. So you get loads of different walks of life and reasons as to why. And I think the apprenticeships in club, then if you identify something that you absolutely love, then you've then still got a road to go down, rather than perhaps maybe that linear path that you may have foreseen before. To sort of Carl's team member around projects. I've got a team member, Sarah, my assistant manager, who wants to move down that road as well. And the brilliant thing is that if this was probably most other businesses, she'd probably have to leave. Whereas in David Lloyd, you don't, because we literally do anything and everything.
So 40 different
and with what over, and that sort of shows in the numbers. We've got over 300 apprentices, across the business, which is considerable. It's to a club, isn't it? I know you've got a lot of them, Carl, but that's a considerable investment in people, and we're a top 25 big employer, and obviously that really does shine.
I remember talking to Sue, and when she entered the business, I think there was something around 20 apprentices to the growth now, and she made a really good point that it's about growing and scaling to accommodate the business. It's not about rapid growth overnight. It's got to be properly thought out, and that kind of brings me on to the question, how do you identify that someone's going to make, it's the right decision to put them on program, and it's the right time to put them on program, especially in your shoes, Carl, where you've got 9 on program. What was kind of the thought process into thinking, okay, that person now is ready for the development, they're ready for the next step?
Well, I mean, I can start with the sort of a non-success story in that sense, I guess. There are times when it's easy to say this person who's a great performer, who's doing really well in their thing, they should be good for it, and we encourage them to do it. But I've got 9 on apprenticeships, but I've probably had 4 or 5 people who started apprenticeships and had to drop off them because they weren't in the right frame of mind, ready to start. And it isn't an exact science. There's as GMs, we are best placed to identify the talent within the club, identify the skill sets that somebody's showing. You might have somebody working in as a lifeguard who you think actually they would be amazing working in kids. It's just the personality and the way they are. So you can encourage the development that way. Obviously, it has to come from them. They have to want their desire to do it. I have a lot of parents of team members come to me saying, "Do you do apprenticeships? This person wants to do apprenticeships," and they're trying to force the kids down these different routes. But identifying, we've seen it all. I suppose we've seen the good, the bad, and everything in between in terms of what makes a successful sort of person within our industry, and it's that tenacity, and it's that, and you see that a lot in some of the team members. And you also see some team members come to you saying, "I want to do this apprenticeship," and you have to be that, say, well, actually, no, it's not the right time for you. Yeah. You have to do it, and you have to trust our instinct, and that we can give them the right reasons for that, and because we can see the commitment, that it does take a commitment. This isn't just something that happens and you sort of sit there, coast through it, and you get something at the end of it. You do have to have that desire to be successful for yourself, and we'll give you the opportunities back in club to learn and to develop. But if you've not got the drive to want to progress your career, then it won't happen. And we have to identify the people that are not just good team members who are strategic and that actually develop, that show the values, from the ones who do that but also have got the space to be able to take on an apprenticeship as well.
I think that's a big part of it. It's being able to soak that up as well, and look, you look at the retention of apprentices now that we have, and I think having that program justifies the selections, because these apprentices are now influenced, and I think this is where this sustainability comes from, up from 20 odd to 300, is that I don't think it's necessarily perhaps not something we're doing, Carl. I think it's generally the apprentices that are coming through our business that are endorsing the program. I think that's where the growth of that is coming from. But what they're also doing is then sharing this is the reality. Like this is what it's like. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to achieve. This is what you expect. And I think, you know, as long as that the more that branches out within the business, then I think we perhaps get more candidates that are ready than not that approach us because they have an expectation of what's coming and excitement generally. I think, you know, certainly the candidates that have come to me, and I've got in my club in Lichfield, I've got Natalie who's starting hopefully at some point this year, and you know, I think she'll terrific and she'll flourish, and she'll be a future leader in our business. So
I just get excited about apprenticeships overall because I'm doing it and stuff, but it's easy to enthuse that excitement onto somebody who's not quite ready as well. So again, it's just taking stock and making sure that you aren't pushing somebody down the route that doesn't want to be on it, or essentially won't, you know, have the time and the energy to do it or the space to do it. But actually encouraging as many people as possible to look at it at least and put some consideration into it. You know, one of the first things I did was we've got kind of a back of house walkway where most of my team will walk through, as they create this big apprenticeship board about all the different ones that we offer, just to even stop and talk about it with the team at different points and say this is available to you, but also give the reality around it. And like Andy said, the more people that go through it, because they'll take my word for it, but they probably won't listen to me as much as they would to a peer who's been through it, and to see somebody who was on the bar 6 months ago who's going off onto projects, you know, doing refurbishment projects, and being paid to go and do this. You know, they don't get that opportunity, you know, elsewhere really. So they see that and they go, actually, I fancy a bit of that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think it's like you said, the ripple effects. I know we were at the graduation just last year.
Yeah.
And the room was absolutely, the atmosphere was great. Everyone was so happy, and like you said, they were all connecting with each other again. Nice to see them in person after probably not seeing each other since the workshops.
Yeah.
But I think that's really important, and I think you guys do it particularly well about celebrating success from the program. And you know, the graduation was a great kind of example of that. Yeah. So I think what should we do more, or do you think we don't need to do anything more about celebrating these apprentices afterwards? Is there should there be a follow-up or anything like that in terms of how we celebrate the success of them completing the program?
I think when it comes to celebrating success, I think now, because it's been 5 years, I think you'll probably start to see, I think, some different case studies around genuinely step up to HOD candidates delivering. You know, I think that's kind of where you know, with you know, certainly with how much the program's moved forward, where you generally have 5 years of brilliant people, you know, more than half of which are still with us, that can share their experience. And I think certainly for me, we could reach out to more and understand how that's impacted their careers, because we know they're out there. There's you know, there's AGMs, there's, you know, we know there's assistant general managers that have been on the step up. There's activities managers, there's sales managers. You know, these are senior leaders in our business. They're not, you know, they're not within just supervisory roles. These are, you know, big, impactful, you know, really, really important people to the success story of their club. So I think, you know, you've sort of reached a stage now where I think you can sort of reach out and celebrate that. And I think, like I say, the graduation is just brilliant. But I think, you know, sort of reflect on what Carl said earlier. You know, you can see the amount of times where I sort of, from not doing, say, step up to GM, but you can see kind of like the little glint in his eye or the glow, and you talk about the stories of what they learned and what they went through together, and you kind of never really lose that. And you see that certainly with, you know, with the candidates that we work through. So it's something that you take with you, don't you?
It becomes part of you. You're the person that you've been through it, so now you want others to go through it, and you share that experience with people. And I think the future following, you know, the follow up after these things is one, to try and help to bring these guys in as facilitators to for the future for more people to come through. From our particular roles, yes, we jumped into the senior leadership, and you know, there's apprenticeships that way, but there's always an opportunity continuously to learn. And I think if we hold on to the business, that actually there's a lot of appetite for that. People do keep wanting to learn. What we don't want these apprenticeships to do is sort of kind of fizzle, you know, the apprentices that have come through fizzle out because they've got to a point now where they've been implementing it, and then how do we then support them to go to the next stage and the next stage, because they've learned, they know what it's like.
Lifelong learners.
So we just try and keep that. I think that's an element of what we need to do for the future as well.
Mm.
So in terms of customer impact, what's the wider impact of this on customers? Ultimately, you're a customer service business. It's what's paying the bills. What's kind of, are you seeing a direct impact of better customer service, of better customer engagement from the program?
Yeah, I mean, you just need to look at the metrics at the moment. The staggering, and it's service profit chain. We genuinely look after our people. I think we do it very well, and that's sort of highlighted and magnified by our top 25 status. Again, so if you look at the metrics from if you take it from everything really, from a member experience perspective, we're delivering record scores this year. We have done in the last few months. We've reached 86-87% as a business, which is phenomenal really. Given that we've seen the attrition of our team drop significantly. We're probably talking 10-20% probably in the last couple of years. Since the balance scorecard came out. There's more emphasis on the induction process. Obviously this is massive, so ongoing learning. So you're recruiting good team members that have that roadmap to where they want to go. And if you look at so many GMs and senior heads and product that started in clubs, started on the ground, and I think that's incredibly powerful for people to see. And with that, you've got people that know the business, that know the impact, that know that can walk into a club and know your front of house team member that's worked there for 20 years, and you can gauge that impact, and along with the data science and everything that we do very, very well as a business, and make those decisions close to the member. And we talked about at the start that Lichfield is completely different to Chorley. That you probably couldn't have two different clubs. I'm pretty fit Lichfield into Chorley. But and that's the beauty of the business, that we're not just a fixed brand that you can just pick up and sort of plonk somewhere. That there is that heart and element to it of locality, which is key, where each club has its own identity, and with it having its own identity, they trust the business leaders. So they trust Carl, they trust me to make decisions around what's best for Lichfield, what's best for Chorley, what's best for Cambridge, what's best for whichever club. And with that and the structures and everything in place, satisfaction's gone up, retention on team members gone up. We're growing all the time. We're building more clubs. The clubs are bigger than ever before. We were talking about the Northwest, weren't we, before we came in? And the size of the clubs in the Northwest in terms of membership count are just phenomenal. So, in a challenging economic environment, really. So, it really is a massive success story, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, to your point around the service profit chain is, it's key. If we keep that focus, and Russell, our CEO, I shared a taxi with him a couple of years ago, random, but he wasn't interested in the commercial element of it. He wanted to know, how was my employee engagement? That's all he wanted to know. What was my employee engagement score? How was that going? Because actually, you take care of your employee engagement, they take care of your members will spend more money, and they will stay with you for longer. And that's essentially the very simplified version of that service profit chain. And by investing in your people at the front end and making sure that you create the right environment for them to grow and flourish as leaders and continue as a career with you, who are loyal to you as a business and embedded into your culture and get all of those things, they bring more people through. The rest of the business takes care of itself. So to answer your question, all of that, it will. We just know it will work if we focus on the front end. We don't really need to worry about that if we get that front end right.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's like you look after your people, the happy workers are going to create a happy environment.
Absolutely. All the measures, and we've seen it. We have seen it. We've seen the measures go up. We've seen the employee engagement scores go, creeping up from 84, 86, 88. We used to think 88 was a really good score for employee engagement for your club, but that gets you sort of mid-table now in our business. If you want to be at the top, you're in the 90s, and that's a measure of how engaged your team are, right? And if you've got 90% plus on your engagement in your team, you're in a good place. So that will knock on to the member experience, which we are seeing improvements in. We are seeing improvements in commerciality and all that stuff as well, in challenging economic conditions. But we're still growing, we're still expanding, we're still growing the business moving forward. And I think that comes from investing in the people, and Juliet and the people team that have over the last few years. And this is where Remit has come in, and the apprenticeship that wasn't there when I first started in the business. That mindset might not have been quite the same. It was maybe a bit more focused over there, but with the current leaders that we've got and how the business is set up, and the changes that Juliet's making, particularly with DE&I and all those things as well, and moving that forward, it's created a much better environment for the team. They're getting all the tools they need, and that's just washing through.
Yeah. So what could other GMs do? So the ones that aren't GM champions, what could they do at club level to spread awareness, to make sure that apprentices are accommodated for?
My experience just in my region is that the GMs need to be understanding of the benefits of this for the future. Which I think sometimes they see the additional cost that it's gonna incur in terms of the off the job hours, and they focus on that as, or maybe we can't afford to do that at this moment in time, but actually see it from a completely different angle. And and that actually has changed massively over the years as well. When we first started this, we were so tight. It's no secret as a business that we do measure our sort of optimization of our labour really quite tightly, and to actually be able to confidently say, well, no, I'm going to invest a little bit more and spend a little bit more, takes a bit of guts, it takes a bit of a greater understanding of what we do. And so our job as champions is to help the other GMs understand the benefits that they'll get from it longer term, and actually it'll pay for itself if you get it right moving forward. So it is just a shift in that sort of old school mentality of no, I've got a budget, I've got to hit each month, and it's rigidity over it, and actually understanding, going back into the sort of overarching thing. We invest in our people, we make it right, and great environment, great loyal people that want to stay with us. We give them the opportunities to develop, and you give them the opportunities to help you as a GM grow your business. You will see your business grow quicker than other people around you, and you get yourself noticed even more as well. So it's quite
I think
win-win, really.
For me, I share this in most of my first workshops, is that I'm a product of someone believing in me, someone many years ago giving me a chance to that first GM role, or that move, that move to that club or whatever it might be. And it's just to encourage that GM to be that person. You are in control of people's destiny, people's careers, and that's a gift. That is a real gift to have, that you can shape and influence people's lives. And to Carl's point, you shouldn't really look at it as a few quid on the P&L. Really, you've really got to take a chance on your stars, on the future leaders of this business, and really back yourself and back your team, to say this person is going to be the next HOD, the next GM in our business. And and I think if you have that solidity and that certainty behind someone, then you should absolutely be doing that.
Yeah, great. And finally, what do you hope for the future outcome of the apprenticeship? What do you want to see? Do you want to see RMs in the next 10 years that have done apprenticeships that are then funneling that down? What does the kind of
I think from a natural progression of how we operate, yes, we want to see that spreading right through the business, and having people at all levels of the business that have been through the apprenticeship program with David Lloyd will create a much more loyal workforce, a better turnover, retention of staff, and help us develop the direction of the business. And there's opportunities for more people to get into learning. I think, I said this right at the start, that a lot of people view apprenticeships as a starting point. Actually, no, it's not. There's an opportunity for people at all levels of business to actually get involved with an apprenticeship, whether, and I hopefully by doing that myself and, getting involved in an apprenticeship at GM level, other people will sort of look at it and go, actually, you don't need to be wanting to be a HOD to get an apprenticeship. You can be doing this at any level and learning, continuously learning. So, my vision for the future is that we get more people coming through the ranks, but also more people at the higher ranks also doing apprenticeships that benefits the business as well, not just doing it to grow themselves, I suppose, but to grow the business.
I'd just love to see a candidate lead this program one day. I think that and it's not far away, and that for me that'll be the real kind of sort of icing on the cake. I think
for the step up one,
and you know, to kind of to sort of really showcase how important that's been. And you know, look, we've both been through this journey, and but to do something that that David Lloyd is with Remit has implemented, and then to have someone stood at the front, shaping and inspiring the next 15, 16 candidates, then that for me will be a real peak moment. I'm very much looking forward to that when that happens.
Well, thank you.